Hey everyone, it's Ollie. Welcome to another beginner's Java tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be going over something called multi-dimensional arrays. So we've already looked at single dimension arrays like so. We have a string array called names, and then we can initialize it with comma separated list of values, or we can set it equal to a new string array, and so on. But what if we want more than one dimension to an array? In other words, what if we want an array of arrays, or an array of arrays? So to do this, we need to use multi-dimensional arrays, and they're really easy to declare. They're pretty much exactly the same as single dimension arrays, so we can read this as a string array. If we want to add another dimension to it, we can simply add another set of square brackets like so. So a string array, and this is now a two-dimensional array. If we added another set of square brackets, it's a three-dimensional, then 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can go on and on. So we'll just do let's do a three-dimensional array, and let's say we'll call this coordinates. So we have our x, y, and z. So we have array of an array of an array, and at each of these x, y, z locations, it's gonna hold a value. So we're gonna set this equal to a new string array like so 3 times, and in here we need to put values. So I'll just put, say, 16, 16, 16. So how does this work? Well, we've declared a three-dimensional string array called coordinates, and bear in mind you can have two-dimensional as well. You can have we've obviously done one-dimensional ones, and you can go up I believe to 64 dimensional arrays, but I may be wrong, so don't take my word for that. But we have this string array called coordinates, or actually for a coordinate let's make it a float data type. As we know, a float is a decimal point number. So we have a three-dimensional float array, and in each thing we've put 16, and this means that this three-dimensional float array holds 16 arrays, and those 16 arrays store 16 arrays each. So within each of the arrays in here, it stores 16 of its own arrays, and within each of the arrays in there, it stores 16 of its own arrays in there. So quite tricky to think about, but once you get your head around it, then it will make a lot more sense. So with the knowledge that I've just told you, we can now begin to declare values for these. Or actually, I will remove this temporarily, this bit here, and I'll show you more visually what I meant by the arrays within the arrays. So basically, when we have one-dimensional array, we can declare it with these spiked brackets like this. So I'm going to just make some space like so, and within this array here, we'll picture these square brackets as the array. Within this array, we can have sets of arrays like so, and we can separate these with commas. And within these arrays, we can have arrays within those, because it's a three-dimensional array. And within these arrays, we then have our values. So we have like 1.4, 3.4, and we need to put the letter F afterwards because they're floats, like that. And I'll literally just copy these down like so. So we have this array here, you can see highlighted in yellow. That's the overall three-dimensional array. And then within that array, we have other arrays. So we're in the second dimension now. We have arrays within this big array. And then within each of those arrays, we have more sets of arrays. And there can be 16 different ones within here. Or using our example earlier, when we declared them each as 16, that means we can have 16 of these, so we can duplicate it down 16 times, and then in each of those we can have 16 of these, like that. So that's basically what that means there. A more visual look at it, and I'll just declare it to a new float again and put 16, 16, 16. So I'll show you now the most common way to initialize variables within the float array, or sorry, not float arrays, multi-dimensional arrays, because by doing it of way of brackets is quite tricky, and you will lose track pretty quickly of what the data is. So to loop through more than one array, or to loop through one array, we use a for loop. So say int x equals 0, x is less than, in this case, 16, because we're looping through 16 elements, and then we can say x plus plus. Now, if that was a one-dimensional array, that would be fine, because we could do whatever we want in here. But in this case, it's a three-dimensional array. So inside this for loop, we're going to have another for loop to loop through the next dimension of arrays within that. So we can have int y equals 0, y is less than 16, y plus plus. And then within this we can have another for loop. So we have three for loops, a for loop within a for loop within a for loop, and in each I'm just initializing them or making the variables x, y, z, like so. So with this three-dimensional for loop, this outside x one is gonna do this 16 times for each of these ones here, and then each time it loops through the x, it's going to have to loop through the y. On each iteration of the x, it's going to have to do this whole y for loop, which loops through all of the ones here. And then in each iteration of the y for loop, it's going to have to do it for the z ones, so all the z ones here, like so. So we're going to do a sort of visual representation of that, and I'll show you in the output when we use the output in a second. So what we're going to do is, in the first x one, we're going to come down, and before we start iterating in the while loop, we're going to system print, if I can spell, print line, and I'm going to copy this because we're going to be typing it a lot. So system out print line, and then we're going to write first dimension, and then we will plus the value of the x, so plus x, like so. We'll put a colon there, so it's just basically printing out the x value, and then similarly here we're gonna paste that and say we're in the second dimension, and then we'll plus out the value of y. But what we're going to do is we're going to tab this, and we can do this by doing \t, and that's just the symbol for tabbing when we want to tab in the output console. So we then can copy that here, and we're going to do two tabs, just \t, and then third dimension, like so, and we'll plus the value of the z. And then finally, within the very center of this mass of for loops, we're going to say coordinates, and I'm going to change it to chords because that's easier. We say chords, and to access a value, you've probably guessed it already, we can say x, y, and z, because at each iteration we've got these values, and we access the x, y, z element in the array, and then we can just say equals I don't know, 3.14 f, and that will initialize every element to that there. We could use a random number, but we'll probably do that a bit later. So setting the value of the array wasn't really the point, it was showing you how the three-dimensional array actually works. So if I drag this output up now and hit run, you'll see that it's looping through, and it's taken a while because there's 16 dimensions for each, And if I drag it down like so and scroll it, you'll see that we start off here, so it's first dimension and we're on the 0th one, and then it will go into the second dimension here, this first iteration of the second dimension, then it will loop through all of the third ones, and then it will go to the next second dimension one, it will loop through all of the array elements in there. So this is the first array, this is the second array, and these are the actual values within the third array, because remember it's an array of arrays in this three-dimensional case. So you can see it's looping through like so, and we'll occasionally see the first dimension ones because they only appear 16 times, whereas the ones in here appear 16 squared times, and the ones here appear 16 cubed times. So, and then you can see it just says build successful, and in the case of this program, each one will have that value that we had earlier, 3.14. But yeah, the point of this tutorial was to teach you about how the arrays work and how they can be looped through and initialized. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to be learning about dynamic arrays called array lists, and they're pretty damn cool. So stick around for that tutorial, and I will see you next time.